A very good evening and a warm welcome to the Business Roundup on Art Television. I'm Mariam Vijayaratna. Let's look at the key developments in the business arena for the gone week, and before that, let's look at the top stories for today. Chinese Defense Minister arrives in Sri Lanka and engages in fruitful discussions. Government plans to spend over 519 million rupees in tourism promotion, Subject Minister reveals. World Bank reassured its assistance in the process of recovering from the damages of COVID-19. News in detail. Chinese Defense Minister General Wei Feng arrived in Sri Lanka last week, met President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and engaged in a number of fruitful discussions. Leader also discussed about the prevailing COVID-19 pandemic and the measures as the countries could be attended.
During the conference, Prime Minister thanked China for donating 600,000 doses of Sinopharm COVID-19 vaccines and personal protective equipment to Sri Lanka to aid in the war against the pandemic. He went on to say that one of the government's main priorities in this effort was to attract investments from all over the world. The Prime Minister told China's Defense Minister that Sri Lanka welcomes China's assistance in reviving investor interest in the island. During the session, the Sri Lankan delegation, led by Defense Secretary General Kamal Gunaratne, had a successful discussion with the Chinese delegation led by General Feng. The Chinese Defense Minister also unveiled the official website of the Chinese National Defense University Alumni Association of Sri Lanka.
We look forward to China's continued support in dealing with this crisis. Our government has decided not to pursue countrywide lockdowns due to the impact such lockdowns have on our economy and society. I am sure you agree that there is still a lot that needs to be done for the post-pandemic economic recovery. One of our main priorities in this effort is to attract investment from around the world. I look forward to your support in rebuilding investor confidence in Sri Lanka.
The Asian Development Outlook 2021 predicts a strong recovery in Sri Lanka's economy as domestic and global economic activity strengthens. According to ADB, Sri Lanka's economy is expected to expand at a rate of 4.1% in 2021 and then to a moderate of 3.6% in 2022 with private investments and consumption recovery.
According to Manila-based lender's flagship Asian Development Outlook, low interest rates and ample liquidity will boost consumption and investment in Sri Lanka. The outlook also claimed that while the pent-up demand is released, growth would benefit in the short term from increased private consumption. The statement highlighted that the progress on the Colombo Port City Special Economic Zone as well as growth in the Hambantota Industrial Zone is projected to encourage foreign direct investment. ADB senior country economist for Sri Lanka, Utsav Kumar, stated that Sri Lanka faces major economic difficulties as a result of high public debt and the need for external financing. He also added that attracting non-debt creating capital inflows, improving domestic tax mobilization and managing expenditures would be vital in reducing vulnerabilities. Annual average inflation is expected to remain at 4.5% in 2021 before rising to 5% in 2022, supported by base effects of high food inflation in 2020 and strong agricultural expansion. In 2021, the current account deficit is forecasted to fall to 1.1% of GDP, while the exports are expected to rise as demand in global export market recovers. Accordingly, the imports will rise as domestic demand and oil prices increase, but continued import restrictions will likely restrict expansion. The outlook, on the other hand, revealed that Sri Lanka faces macroeconomic risks. According to ADB, Sri Lanka's difficult macroeconomic condition will possibly moderate development in 2022.
Data from the State Statistics Department said that Sri Lanka's unemployment rate dropped to 5.2% in the fourth quarter of 2020, down from 11-year high of 5.8% in the third quarter. According to the statement, the total employed population was 8.03 million in the fourth quarter of 2020 as the country recovered from steep downturns of COVID-19.
According to a statement issued by the Department of Census and Statistics, the total number of employed people in Sri Lanka is expected to be over 8 million during the fourth quarter of 2020. Out of the 8 million, about 44.8% were engaged in service sector, 29% in agriculture sector, and 26.2% in industry sector. Agriculture sector accounted for the majority of the growth in jobs, with 2.33 million people working in the fourth quarter of 2021, up from 2.21 million in 2019. The Central Bank of Sri Lanka's Purchasing Managers Index showed that new hires began in 2021 after a second wave of coronavirus in October slowed an early rebound when the lockdowns were lifted. Sri Lanka's economic growth has been declining since 2012 owing to increased monetary uncertainty brought on by more discretionary and loose monetary policy as well as increased trade restrictions. The survey results further reveals that the unemployment among females is higher than that of males in the first quarter of 2020. When comparing the percentage distribution of male and female workforce by major business segments, the service sector has the highest employment share, while the industry sector has the lowest employment records.
Tourism Minister Prasanna Ranatunga announced that the ministry would spend over 519 million rupees in tourism growth projects this year. Minister made these remarks during a discussion held recently to look into the progress of development projects being carried out by the Ministry of Tourism.
Tourism Minister Prasanna Ranatunga emphasized the importance of safeguarding tourist attractions while improving infrastructure in tourist zones. Minister Ranatunga has urged officials to pay particular attention to this when implementing the Ministry of Tourism's annual growth strategy. A total of 100 million rupees has been set aside for the renovation of ancient Dutch forts, with another 37 million rupees set aside for the development of existing tourist attractions. A total of 265 million rupees has also been set aside for the construction of 30 intermediate houses near the Mother Church in Mannar, which is a joint project between Sri Lanka and India. Accordingly, 45 million rupees have been set aside by the ministry for the growth of human capital in the tourism sector. Officials reported that this initiative training of those engaged in the field of tourism covering all provinces of the island is already underway. Construction of the approach route to Yalagalge, the weaving platform at Madulsima Small World's End, and improvement of infrastructure services for visitors visiting Bopat Alla are among the development projects currently underway. According to the Minister of Tourism, 7 tourist villages have been developed as part of the community-based tourist village initiative. The launch of 7 new websites related to these tourist villages has been planned. Minister Prasanna Ranatunga expressed his views, emphasizing the importance of the Minister of Tourism and the Tourism Development Authority working together to improve tourism in Sri Lanka.
We'll be right back after this short commercial break. Welcome back after the break. The Export Development Board announced that Sri Lanka reached $1 billion in exports in March after a 6-month hiatus. Export Development Board Chairman Suresh Dimel said that even with the current pandemic situation around the world, Sri Lanka's exports are positively on the rise.
According to customs figures, earnings from merchandise exports increased by 62.47% year-on-year in March 2021. Earnings from merchandise exports surged 11.51% to $2,954.53 million in the first quarter of 2021 relative to the same period in the previous year. Earnings from major commodity segments such as apparel, tea, rubber-based products, coconut-based products, spices, and electrical and electronic components surged both in March 2021 and during the first quarter of 2021 relative to the previous year. Both tea export earnings and production increased by 99.33% and 86.69% year-on-year in March 2021 respectively. Tea exports amount to $124.61 million, accounting for 12% of total merchandise exports. The first 3 months of comparison show a 25.2% rise. The higher result is attributed to increased demand from the UAE, China, and Libyan markets. Earnings from all major categories of coconut-based goods rose by 109.57% in March 2021 as compared to March 2020, owing to better results in the export of coconut oil, liquid coconut milk, cocoa peat, and activated carbon. The United States of America's single largest export destination reported $715.4 million in exports in the first quarter of 2021, a 0.94% improvement from the $708.76 million recorded in the first quarter of 2020. EDB estimates that services exports, which include construction, financial services, and transport and logistics, will total $1,194.3 million in the first quarter of 2021, up from $993 million in the same time frame in 2020.
New directions given under Sri Lanka's Foreign Exchange Act have permitted Sri Lankan firms to borrow from abroad and foreign companies to borrow from their parents without prior permission. The statement issued from the Central Bank of Sri Lanka stated companies may also borrow overseas in rupees or foreign currency with a maturity period of more than 3 years.
Companies with business foreign currency accounts could borrow overseas for working capital for a period of less than 3 years if repayments could be made in foreign currency. Foreign parent corporations may now lend to branch or initiative offices under the new regulations, which is effective from 22nd March 2021. Financial firms may also purchase unlisted Sri Lanka debt securities issued by entities other than banks and finance companies under the new regulations. The statement further stated that banks and finance companies will borrow money from other countries if they get regulatory approval. According to the central bank, the Sri Lankans who served overseas are now able to keep bank accounts in other countries. In accordance with Sri Lankan inheritance and succession law, an immigrant can inherit any asset in the country. The new act allows immigrants to receive any asset in Sri Lanka as a gift from their parents, grandparents, siblings, or spouse, whether they are resident or immigrants. In the case of borrowings made by government and state-owned enterprises shall be reported by the Department of External Resources and Department of National Budget of the Ministry of Finance to the head of the Department of Foreign Exchange within 1 month of the receipt of the loan proceeds.
The World Bank reassured Sri Lanka of its assistance in the process of recovering from the effects of COVID-19. The assurance was given in a statement following a recent visit to the country. The World Bank's country director for Maldives, Nepal and Sri Lanka, Faris Haddad Sherwas.
World Bank's country director for Maldives, Nepal and Sri Lanka, Faris Haddad Sherwas, has recently reaffirmed the World Bank's contribution to assist Sri Lanka's recovery and rebuilding efforts following the COVID-19 shock. The visit coincided with the publication of the Sri Lanka Development Update, Economic and Poverty Impact of COVID-19, which was released on the 9th of April. The study offers an update on Sri Lanka's economy and prospects, emphasizing the pandemic's disastrous effects. The World Bank management team, which visited Sri Lanka in last November, has signed 2 crucial agreements during the visit. A World Bank loan of $69.53 million will be used to construct dams and irrigation networks, while a loan of $69.33 million will be used to build a new transport terminal in Kandy. In Sri Lanka, the World Bank currently has 19 active programs with a cumulative commitment amount of $2.33 billion in a number of sectors such as transportation, urban, irrigation, water, education and health.
Central bank data shows that Sri Lanka sold 29.89 billion rupees of treasury bills at a price-controlled auction recently. A rollover auction held recently for 750 million of Sri Lankan development bonds were also undersubscribed by 12% as the central bank accepted bids worth $652.6 million.
The price-controlled auction of bills worth 45 billion rupees saw a big boost with more offers coming in for 3-month bills. 3-month bills worth 24.08 billion rupees were trading at 5.11%, up from 1 basis point after being offered for 9 billion rupees. After offering 18 billion rupees, 4.03 billion rupees of 6-month bills were offered at 5.14% with an increase of 1 basis point. While offering 18 billion rupees, 1.775 billion rupees of 12-month bills were offered at 5.18% as the price limit. Over the past year, the central bank took some unsold bills above the price limit of printed money, resulting in surplus supply, low interest rates, a balance of payment deficit, currency inflation, and credit downgrades. However, the central bank now holds the majority of the unpaid bills totaling 893 billion rupees, and their rollover causes no new monetary uncertainty. Following the receipt of a $500 million loan from China, the central bank sold down approximately 10 billion rupees of bills in the previous 2 auctions.
With that, we will be winding up for today. See you tomorrow with State of Business at 7:45 p.m. Take care and have a good night.